Hi and welcome. I'm Christine, and I am here to help and empower parents to make lasting, meaningful changes in their child's feeding routines. So, we want our kids eating healthy, happy, stress free, right? So, that's what we're going to talk about today. How do we get our kids who are literally afraid to try new foods to our foodie level, which is someone who's not afraid to try new foods? They eat a wide variety. Meal times are not stressful, right? So that's the key. How do we do that? So that's what we're going to try to tackle today. It's a big topic. But I'm going to try to simplify it as much as I can. If you're new to my work, please get started with us at the pickyeaterstest.com. That's a great way to take our free quiz, get an idea of where your child currently stands with feeding issues. That is always so key, is knowing and having that information of where are you starting from and what are their exact issues, what needs to be focused on, right? So that is sort of what we're going to touch on today a little bit as well, right? So because to get from fearful to foodie, we really do have to know what their underlying issues are around food. And it's not really quite as black and white as you think, right? So last week we talked about the four pillars of feeding, right? So there's these four areas that really encompass a lot of the struggles that our kids have when they are eating, right? So when there is some sort of a problem with one of those areas, something's just not working properly, right? You're going to see issues. And a lot of our pick eaters, and especially the more severe ones, the more fearful ones, there is usually all of those areas involved, or at least more than two to three. So, so yeah, feeding's a complex topic. There's really no way around that, but we'll do our best to simplify it here today. So, from fearful to foodie is really actually what I had changed the name of our course to. It was from picky plate to clean slate, but I wanted to sort of change how the course was structured and make it a little bit more targeted for our specific levels of child because a child who's really fearful, you're going to need to work on different skills than a child who already has like 25 foods in their diet, right? Those are totally different skill levels. We're going to want different types of lessons essentially to go with that. So the program that I made kind of follows that. But where does your child stand? What type of eater is your child currently? Right. So that's what we're going to cover. So, our very first level at the bottom is our fearful level. So, if this is your child, you'll probably be able to relate to this, but they're probably not eating more than 10 different foods, right? They're probably even eating separately from you, maybe at their own table, or maybe they're walking around eating. Completely needing distraction, not sitting at the table with you, either taking a really long time to finish a meal, grazing all day, or they eat what they like to eat in 5 seconds and move on with their day, and they don't want to see food again for a while. These types of kids get really emotional. If you put a new food in front of them, they are not just going to happily explore that food and be curious about it. They're either going to turn away, run away, gag, vomit, throw up, whatever. They're not going to tolerate having a new food near them, right? They're probably only eating from one or two food groups or one or two different types of textures of food. And they're definitely not going to be trying any new brands, any new any new foods that you're going to present to them. So that is our most severe level, the kids who are so fearful, right? Now, a step up from that is the stuck level. So kids at this level, they're eating a little bit more foods. They're eating between 11 and 25 foods usually. They're probably able to eat at a table until maybe the meal is complete, but they're probably still needing distractions, probably even like a good amount of distraction. And their mealtime is probably still pretty atypical. So it's still probably either too long or really short. But they'll probably allow you to put new foods near them or on their plate as long as they're not required to eat them. So these are the kids where you've exposed them to new foods, there's new foods on the plate, but nothing is happening. Like as long as they don't have to eat it, they'll tolerate it there. Um, so, that's this is still pretty a stressful situation, right? Fearful, stressful, but when you're stuck like this is still a stressful situation for kids and parents usually. Um, they might be eating from a few more categories of food, maybe like three or so. And they might try even some foods if they're considered safe. So, what I mean by that is if your child likes to eat bread, they might eat a new type of bread because it's within that same bread category, but they're not going to try something outside of that. Like they're not going to try a celery stick if that's not in their safe category, right? So these are our stuck kids. These are the kids that they've either been at that same level for a long time or they've actually dropped off foods from their safe list over time. And now they've just sort of ended up in this little limbo, and you're left with pretty few foods to choose from. All right. So, one level up from that, right? So, we had fearful at the bottom, then stuck, now curious. So, this is a much better place to be in, comparably, but there's still work to do here for sure. Now, in this level, they're eating probably between 26 and 39 foods. And if you're like, Christine, how many foods are you actually supposed to be eating? You should be able to. Now, I know some of you are going to think that this is absolutely crazy because you probably don't actually do this yourselves. But for a good, healthy gut microbiome, you're supposed to be eating about 30 different types of foods per day. And if you're like, that's impossible, um, there's definitely ways to eat and incorporate more different foods. Like, for example, I can actually do this in one sitting with my yogurt bowl, putting in different fruits, putting in now my granola, mind you, has probably at least 10 different types of foods just in the granola between different nuts, different seeds, different spices, right? All different things. So that's a good variety right there. So it is absolutely possible. But if you're thinking it of like, well, I only have a few different types of foods per day, think about all of the things that go into each food, right? You probably are doing a little bit more than you think, right? So when you're making a salad or a sauce, there's different ingredients that go into making that. And that's what we're talking about. That variety of having, multiple different types of foods literally going into your belly every day. Okay. So let's see. So our curious, yes, that's where we were. So they're probably only eating about 26 to 39 foods. Okay. So these kids are probably able to sit with you at the table. It's probably not quite as stressful, especially not for them. They're probably still going to benefit from a little bit of distraction, but they're going to be able to get through the meal more successfully, and probably will be able to sit for about the same amount of time that the rest of the family is able to sit. Um, they might actually even taste some non-preferred foods for you, right? They might take one bite of it and then say, no, thanks, I'm done. But they're going to be less hesitant and fearful around trying those new foods, right? Because they're a little curious, right? But their guard is still up, right? So, they're going to eat more categories of foods, more textures of foods, right? So things are just a little bit easier, right, than those other categories. Now, our very last level, and this is where we hope all of our families end up, is at the foodie level. So when we say that someone is a foodie, they are eating more than 40 foods. They're not hesitating to try new foods. They're very willing and they'll do so independently. They'll eat at the table with you. And it doesn't really matter what table it is, right? It could be a table at a restaurant, it could be a table at a birthday party. They'll sit with you and they will eat pretty much anywhere at any time, and they don't need distractions to get through their meal. They can just sit and engage with the food alone, right? It's happy, it's stress free. These are the types of meals that, like those picture perfect meals that you have, like right pictured in your head, probably of like your ideal mealtime. This is what you want, right? They're eating from all different categories of foods. And that doesn't mean like if you are vegan, that they have to be eating meat. It just means that they're eating from all categories of foods that you and your family eat from, right? They're not restricted because they're afraid to try those different foods. It's just that they're willing and able to eat from all categories that are available and presented to them, right? So, how do you move between these levels, right? That is the key. So I think what I tried to do was I tried to figure out, well, what were the essential skills that you would need at each of those levels? Because somebody who is curious, their mindset is very different. Their sensory system is going to be different. Their oral motor skills are going to be very different. So, accordingly, the lessons and what the parents need to know at all of those levels are going to be very different, right? So, what I did was I sort of teased apart the current course and I like kind of put things all over the place of what would be most appropriate for each level and according to each pillar. So, right. So, the sensory stuff that a fearful person is going to be working through is very different from the sensory things that someone who is stuck or curious would be going through. So, it's really about meeting your child where they are at. And having that plan around, like, okay, well, if this is what they're struggling with, this is the steps I need to take to work through these different pillars and to get them functioning optimally so that they can be successful and move to the next level, right? Because we can't get them to move to the next level if none of their sensory things have been addressed or none of their gut things have been addressed, right? All of those things are going to play a big role. And of course, the oral motor skills, right? So we talk about the four pillars, right? There's sensory, oral motor, there's gut, and there's mindset. So if there's one area that's sort of out of balance or out of whack or hasn't been addressed, um, we have to make sure that we've touched upon all those areas. And someone in the fearful level is probably going to need at least something in each of those areas for sure. I have never really had it that was not the case. Sometimes the gut isn't as big of an issue, but there's always that component because when you're only eating, like I said, if a healthy gut needs 30 different foods a day, if you have, between 1 and 10 foods in your entire diet that you're willing to put into your mouth, right? How are you possibly going to meet that requirement, right? How would that work? So, of course, the microbiome is going to, suffer in some way because it's not getting everything it needs, right? So, we talk about, probiotics and supplements and like how to navigate that in between period, right? Which is a focus of that course, the Picky Eaters Plate course, right? But I do incorporate a lot of that course into this bigger course because I feel like you can't totally separate that out because if there is that gap period, there's that period where kids are only eating maybe 3 or 4 foods and they're not going to jump to foodie right away. Like that's just not going to happen. So there is that in between period where we still want their body to be getting all of the nutrients it needs, but in a way that doesn't mess with their mindset and their sensory system, and you know, just completely, is too challenging for their oral motor skills, right? So it's really all about like knowing your kid really well, getting that all of their baselines for all of those areas, and really developing a very specific plan of like, well, these are the things that they're going to need to work on to get to that next level, and these are the lessons, and this is like the homework, right? This is what I have to work on this week, this day, this month to help get them to that next level. And, you know, I have always said this, and it's one of the reasons I actually made the course is because there is a huge difference between the parents that do the work and the parents that don't, and how quickly their kids make progress, how satisfied they are with therapy, how satisfied they are with their kids eating, how much stress they have at meal times. There is like a direct correlation, right? I can tell you our families that have been with us for well over a year do minimal to nothing at home. Our families, especially any parent that has taken our course, right? In a very short time, within 1 to 2 months, we're seeing huge gains. But why is that? The main factor is usually the parents are implementing strategies. They're doing things at home, right? A therapist who comes to your house once a week, or you go to their office once a week, that's one small, very small part of that child's week. If you have no idea what they're doing, what they're talking about, what the strategy is, how can you implement that for all of the meals that they're having during the week, right? How do you how could we possibly make progress with 1 hour out of, right? So if I don't know, like, or it's not even usually a meal that you're having with the therapist, right? That's not usually meal times. It shouldn't be. But there's I mean, kids eat 3 meals plus at least 2 snacks a day, so that's like 5 times. So that's, 5 times 7, and then you expect, just one sitting with the therapist to make huge gains in 1 week, right? But think about if you implemented even just one small step, one small strategy for each of those meals every day during that week. Can you imagine how that progress would compound and how you would see progress much faster, right? So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about parents doing the work, parents getting empowered, parents knowing what to do, how to say, what not to say, right? Those are all the little pieces of magic that turn a fearful child into a foodie child. It does not happen overnight. It's not going to happen, foodie fearful to foodie is not going to take place in even 1 month. I would never ever promise that. But I can promise you that parents who show up, learn, do the work, implement, and are consistent, they see progress. The rate of progress is like exponentially faster. Like I said, going from like 1 to 2 months to well over a year of seeing some jumps in levels, right? So it is significant, and it's something to think about because I think a lot of our parents get scared thinking that like it's on them because, well, they're not the expert or their kids are not going to do it for them. But if that's your mindset that it'll never work because of you, right? That's not a good mindset to have at all. So we actually work on your mindset as well because you have to go into this I don't know if you want to call it a challenge, a project, a adventure, but you have to go in thinking, knowing that you're going to come out better on the other side, right? That you're going to be achieving your goals because, if I don't want any parents ever going into, something like this, um, thinking, oh, it's probably not going to work. It's not going to work for me, right? We don't want that. We want excitement. We want, that you're going to be like, yes, I've got this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to tackle this. I'm going to master this, right? That is the attitude of winner, right? So we want to encourage and inspire parents to take those small steps, even if it's not with us, right? Even if it's not with us, please take even just one small step. There's so many amazing tips and strategies that we offer on Instagram, on YouTube, on our website. There's so many different strategies and things you can take from the work that we do, and just implementing one of those things on a consistent basis, I'm sure you'll start to see some of that progress, right? But imagine when you know across all of the pillars exactly what to do, and you're implementing things that align with exactly what your child needs, how much exponentially faster you could potentially make that progress, right? So that is what we're going for here. So that is the new program, I guess, that we have updated that we are now offering to our families. So it is Unlocking Mealtimes from Fearful to Foodie. It is truly a transformation program. And that is our goal, is to transform your mealtime, your child's mealtime, and really your child's relationship with food, hopefully for life, right? We want kids to have a good relationship with food and not be struggling, fearful, and unhealthy, right? Because it is just staggering the childhood epidemics that we are seeing, and many of them come back to, well, what are we putting in their bodies? What is their fuel? Right? So this is such a near and dear topic to my heart. And, I do hope that you guys are encouraged, like I said, even if it's not working directly with us, just to take one small step and implement something consistently at home into a routine that hopefully you'll start to see some changes with, right? So if you have more questions about it, if you want to get started, go to thepickyEatersTest.com, and you can take the free quiz and learn which level your child is currently at. And of course, on our website, foodologyfeeding.com/courses, right? Our program is at the bottom of that page, and we have a whole page full of information of what is included in that course and what kind of support you get, all of the one-to-one help that we offer with that. So hopefully we will see you inside. And thanks for joining us today. And I hope you guys have a great week.
Thank you for listening to How to Unpicky Your Picky Eater. To learn more about achieving your child's feeding goals, check out Christine's website at foodologyfeeding.com. And be sure to tune in next time to How to Unpicky Your Picky Eater.